Welcome to
Hey.
a live edition of the Garden Report. It's Josue Pavone. It's Jimmy Toscano. Welcome back, Josue. We're sorry we missed you last week, but you're right on time for the big news. We talked
What up, JoJo?
I say 50 days-ish. Kevin Durant saga going on. June 30th. We all kind of fell out of our chairs on June 30th when we saw the trade request. I was recording like a Dome Theory ad read and was just like, what? So no trade. Nets are running it back 2022, 23 here. The Nets brass met Steve Nash, Sean Marks, the guys that Durant wanted fired a couple weeks ago, met up with owner Joe Tsai, and they all collectively agreed, however reluctantly, to run this back. Sean Marks releases a statement. Steve Nash and I, together with Joe Tsai, Clara Wuzai, met with Kevin Durant and his agent Rich Kleiman in LA yesterday. We've agreed to move forward with our partnership. We are focusing on basketball with one collective goal in mind. Isn't that line something?
You sound disappointed, Bob.
That line is something. Going. We are focusing on basketball with one collective goal in mind, build a lasting franchise to bring a championship to Brooklyn. Jimmy, first thoughts on Durant throwing in the towel on the trade request?
I feel like we had brought up that possibility a few times on this show. Maybe it was part of me always thought that, like, how can they make this work anymore? I mean, I think I said that was kind of my take. It was like Kevin Durant has to go somewhere because there's just way too much, feels like, animosity between the sides now. Durant calling out the coaching staff, the front office basically backing the coaching staff. You've got all these people that are kind of going at each other. I don't know how you can just band together and put on this smile and just play basketball. I doubt that's going to happen. I think Bobby and John and Josue, I'm not sure what your take was, but I thought you guys were like, kind of said, like, I bet you he's going to end up staying with the Nets. What other choice did they have? I'm not sure on that, but listen, it's pretty clear that the Nets couldn't get what they were asking for Durant, regardless of whether it was with the Celtics, the Suns, the Heat, whatever. And now they have no choice but to go into the season this way. Maybe there's an understanding, hey, Kevin, just we'll start the season and like we'll continue to work, behind the scenes to get you, out of here if that's what you want. But in the meantime, it's best for all parties to, play basketball, basically. The more you play and show that you're Kevin Durant, the more likely an opposing team will go after you. Maybe an opposing team's one of their players goes down and, all of a sudden Kevin Durant seems a lot more enticing to one of these teams. I don't know. I do know this. Tons of drama surrounding the Nets once again going into the season. Talent-wise, and we've talked about this in our chat, on paper, they're extremely talented. They're one of the most talented teams in the NBA, and you always kind of have to worry about them, right? Because on any given night, they're Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, the whole 9 yards. But it's in between the games, right? It's all that other junk that we've come to know about these guys that makes you kind of say, I don't trust them, or I'm not as concerned as I should be, right? Because they're their own worst enemy. The only team that can beat the Nets really is the Nets, and they've beaten themselves the last couple of years here. I have no reason to think that's going to change until they prove me wrong.
Celtics remain championship favorites after this move. Warriors still second, along with the Bucks. Bucks actually second, Warriors third. Nets tied for fourth with the Clippers now, with everybody running it back. Just what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Jimmy, you're spot on there. But the biggest reason why the Nets asked for such a steep asking price for so many other teams is because that's probably the reason, the whole thing from this jump. They're thinking to themselves, we want to see these guys running back at least one more time after all the investments we've done. We got this brand new contract around. How about we try this out first? Like, Ben Simmons didn't even touch the floor uniform, and I think if you're management, you're going to ask for the steepest price to various teams, knowing that they're not going to meet your demands. I think they did that on purpose, honestly. And of course, if there was a team that bit, if there was a big trade package that was worth their while, I think they would have given it some serious thought, some serious consideration. But that just never happened because their asking price was that high for a reason. They'd rather see these guys run it back. And if it doesn't work this year, then so be it. They move on. But at least they'll know, they'll see what it looks like. There was a lot of distraction this last season, obviously with Kyrie Irving unable to play in various cities, and you know the message that they sent and not allowing him to play in Brooklyn when they could have, as long as they did. I think all that is relative to the fact that they're still wondering what could have been. What if there was no other distraction, no other things in the way that prevented Kyrie from hitting the floor. But let's see what happens. Obviously, Canada doesn't seem like they're going to be changing their rules anytime soon. So, I mean, with this, it could come right back. The mandate, this whole thing could blow up in their face. Obviously, that's what most people are thinking. But I also think that they're still a team to watch for in the East. I'm not putting them in the top 4 yet. They're going to have to get in line behind the Celtics, obviously, the Heat, the Bucks, you know, the teams that'll be in the mix. But they're definitely up there. It's like what Jimmy said. I mean, it's Durant and Kyrie at the end of the day. But let's see how they respond to the criticism. You know,
it's a temporary solution.
And Simmons, don't forget our boy Simmons. He might actually play a game this year.
Yeah,
hey, I mean, defensively, it'll help for sure.
He's the X factor, man. We haven't even seen them with Simmons yet. I mean, if they all can actually just play basketball, it's a massive if. But if they just play basketball,
the entirety of this Garden report. The entirety of this Garden Report program's been waiting for Simmons to return. I actually saw the Nets social post summer practice. You would think he's going to play right away. I wouldn't be stunned if he needs another week with the bag or something like that. That's what we've gone through this whole time, right? Especially once he arrived in the Nets around the trade deadline. You thought he was going to hit the ground running right away. You thought he was avoiding that Philly game, the return there. He doesn't return in the aftermath of that. I think we all thought he'd return at some point in that series. I remember asking the Celtics back then. Everyone was just kind of shrugging their shoulders on the Celtics, saying like, you know, nothing really changes if he comes back. And he ultimately did, and even though it looked like he was going to play in Game 4. But you're still intrigued by him, Jimmy. What's it been, 16 months since he's played at this point? Must have been May, June-ish, 2021. It was a disaster against Atlanta in that playoff series. I like the trade, the James Harden trade, because he can do all the little things with the Nets, right? He doesn't have to focus on scoring. Can pass the ball to these great scorers, can defend a bunch of positions for a team that has struggled on that end. I just have to see it. Like every month that passes, we can imagine what he brings to the table. But until he gets back out there and we actually see what it looks like, I'm just expecting nothing.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm extremely down on Ben Simmons. Anybody who's watched the show knows I've been back and forth on him a little bit, but I mean, I've been extremely hard on him. I mean, the guy should play basketball. Now, I know he had the back injury and then he had surgery and all this stuff, and he came to a settlement and he made a bunch of money back that the Nets originally held from him. I don't know what's real and what isn't real. All I know is this. The last time we saw Ben Simmons play, free throws aside, aggressiveness aside, very passive.
half the basketball game.
We know the guy can play basketball, especially on the defensive end. I understand that mentally he's somewhere out in left field on the basketball court. I'm just talking about on the court. I don't know what's going on off the court, but on the court, his mind was in the wrong places at points where he needed to be more aggressive and be a score first type of a player. I'm not saying the 3-point, he's going to start hawking 3-point shots, but just taking the ball to the hoop, simple things like that. I still think that's in there. And I know what he's capable of on the defensive end. You can guard 1 through 5. You can switch nonstop with him. So again, if he gets back to playing basketball, it's very intriguing. I don't know any NBA fan can't not be intrigued by the thought of Ben Simmons returning somewhat to form. He's not a player on the end of his career, 30 plus years old or whatever. He's a guy that should be in the prime of his career right now. So if they can get him back on the basketball court and he is healthy, that's, like I said, that's an X factor to this Nets team. I'm not banking on it, but even if you got 75% of Ben Simmons, think about how much better the Nets will be than they were last year. I mean, a ton better. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm certainly not going to bet an over/under on games played by Ben Simmons. I have no idea if the guy's going to even show up day one, but I mean, he should, obviously. And if he does, and if he plays games, the Nets are going to be a hard team to beat, but they have to play basketball. Simple as that.
Yeah, well, I think you're intrigued, Jimmy, because there's parts of his game that obviously doesn't include shooting, doesn't include, right. a lot of what other superstars rely on, whether it's their, willingness to get to the rim and getting back their stamina, because he can he's limited in that regard, but at the same time, he's also a good defender. He's an all-star caliber defender, obviously, or he was. He was a great point guard, the kind of player this team needs to just get everyone the ball, get their shots, get their looks, And I think the Nets made those kind of moves to try to obviously supplement some kind of offense, whether it's outside shooting and having, one of their shooters that wasn't around all last season, and Joe Harris. So, yeah, I mean, it's intriguing, but again, we're not going to jump the gun here and say that this team is going to be one of the top 2-3 teams in the East. They're going to have to prove it. They're going to have to figure this thing out.
Yeah, they got to prove it, right? Because they show up last year. I know guys in and out of the lineup. Simmons never played. Harden quit halfway through. It was a disaster season. You had the mandate, and you had pieces around them that weren't great fits, certainly. Again, it's funny with me and the Nets because I despise this team and the whole run they've been on and the roster and the coaching and everything else. When they put this together a couple years ago and they actually all got on the court, I thought it could have been Warriors-esque, and it didn't go that way. So I actually started high on them, ended up being about as low as anybody on this group. It shocked me that people wanted to avoid them last year in the first round when they ended up getting swept. But I like some of the moves they've made, and you look at the guys they're bringing back, like Joe Harris, who's a sharpshooter, killed the Celtics years ago in that first round. Royce O'Neal was an excellent move. I know Windhorst had the fingers firing when they did that. Seth Curry, he had the ankle injury. Seth Curry had the ankle injury in that first round. He wasn't quite himself. Offensively, they're going to be a heavy force to reckon with, especially Durant. I've been high on Durant. I wanted him on the Celtics, so I'm not going to flip on him. I just worry about some of the smaller guards. I worry about the coaching. I worry about the temperament and the availability of the team, certainly. Who knows what Kyrie's next thing is going to be. Every year it's been something. To worry about, Bobby.
Hey, we should.
It's too much. I have to see it.
We should take a wager. We should take a friendly wager in how long does Steve Nash have? Let's be honest.
Oh my God.
That's the big one, right?
Ticking, right? If this team starts off 2-5, or I don't know, like 3-10 or something, or not even before that happens, they're gonna kick him out. They're gonna kick him out of the door. But then who's next? Who replaces him? Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And how far is Durant at that point from saying I want out again? Well, this thing's very fragile.
I don't want to start.
He'll be the one that gets to has say in who's next, who comes up.
Yes. I don't want to start betting on guys getting fired, and I certainly don't want anyone to lose their job. Steve Nash was an unbelievable player.
I know.
I'm not sure. No. Let me finish. That said, he's dead meat. He's a dead man walking. He's definitely he's toast.
I thought you'd be the scapegoat for that sweep.
He's in a bad spot.
You made me feel guilty. I'm like, shit.
No, you should have let me finish because I'm doubling down on what you said. He's definitely. I mean, he's got to be the betting favorite to be the first coach fired this season. Not saying I want it to happen, but as soon as the Nets go on a little bit of losing streak, you're going to start hearing it. Where the players are, we already know Durant's not a fan. I mean, I can't imagine. Last year, Kyrie Irving basically said that there's no real coaching staff on the team, so it's just a really messed up situation over there, and it's not going to take much for the Nets to go on a bit of a losing streak. And if Steve Nash is on the shortest leash of all short leashes, he's going to get canned. I don't know who's going to be the next. Who cares? It doesn't even matter because they're not even like is Durant, Kyrie, those guys going to listen to him anyways, or are they going to do their own thing? I mean, it sounds like that's kind of where they're at over there. So it's a tough situation to be in. And that's why I'm not overly concerned about the Nets.
Being a fan of this team, right? And they don't have a ton of fans.
Right? Are there? Yeah, I was going to say, right? Who's really a fan of that team?
I know a few down the city that have been riding with them, but it's got to be grueling. It's never basketball, right? It's guys sitting on the sideline. Me and Joe Sway read the book about that first year. I see it in the background there. Like, it's just like cryptocurrency with Dinwiddie and fighting over his contract, and like Nash and the coach getting replaced, and the little like side room where everyone's hanging out talking about stuff, and it just makes your head spin. And again, I'm all for player empowerment. The Nets won big here on that front, right? Durant could have easily gotten out of a full extension here, and they made all the moves put their foot down. Desai had that great tweet when Durant wanted those guys fired, which again, I thought was just such a despicable move on Durant's part as a last ditch effort to get out of this whole experiment that he really put together. And so now he's going to have to figure it out, show some leadership, get Simmons back in the fold, and make this work. Unfortunately, I think what we've seen with him and Irving and a lot of guys in this situation here is they've sort of just not shown the greatest leadership, looked at others, put their foot out the door in the Boston situation and certainly the Warriors situation where Durant sort of just had his head out of the situation there the last season. So is anyone really going to dig deep here to try to save this? Because it'd be so easy for Durant especially, right, to say, I'm out of here. I wanted out. I gave it a chance. This is crazy. Remember what Harden did in Houston? He gave it like a month or so, and then he was back at the podium saying, I'm done. And that wouldn't stun me at all if this is how the situation ends here. Because, again, I just don't see everybody buying in, playing enough games, spending enough time together, playing the defensive intensity needed to string together a bunch of wins. And the East is tough. I mean, people are going to have them up there with the best. But the Celtics, the Bucks, the Heat, the Sixers, like those are 4 teams right there that I put in front of them off the bat. And then there's some other good teams in the middle.
Yeah, that's true, Bobby. But I also wonder how much Kevin Durant learned about the situation in the NBA right now. Like in terms of teams that want to line up, teams lined up to trade for you and what it looks like for a franchise that's trying to pretty much essentially gut their team just to bring you along. But then how good are you after that? I mean, if you're Kevin Durant, you have to sort of weigh out your options and think this is probably your best one, at least right now. And if you give your best, if you try to pull this team together, maybe you pull this thing off. Maybe you can quiet all the haters. I mean, obviously we see him on Twitter. We see how he's telling people, random fans, anyone that gets at him, that's included, anyone could get it, right? Now he's going to have to back that up. And we're going to see if there's any excuses for him. And if there's not, then he's going to be on the spot here. And of course, Kyrie's in the mix as well.
I love his game. He's going to play great. I think that's for certain. And that was something the Celtics fans were doing that I didn't really agree with. And John did a little bit too, like, oh, he's older, he's declining. He is right, I think, squarely in his prime still. So he's going to be a problem himself. I have no questions about Kyrie's game, right? And even Simmons, again, I look at it and I don't have a huge amount of faith in him, the personality, the player, the competitor. But his game, we've seen against the Celtics at points over the years, can be deadly, especially running out in transition. So there's a world where this team's really good. I just think so much has to go right. So many questions have to be answered here. The coach especially, it's like, is he the leader to really steer the ship here? And who is the leader of this group? I thought it was Durant, right? But he really showed to be lacking in that area this offseason, didn't he?
Well, yeah, to say the least. I don't know how you can just show up and be the leader after you've already publicly stated that you wanted to be traded. It's kind of tough to go ahead and pull the leadership card after that. It's not like nobody on the Nets, has any idea what's going on within their own team. So yeah, leadership's definitely a problem. We've mentioned it again. It's just the unknown of, are these guys gonna play basketball? You mentioned Xanis, and by the way, people are asking where Xanis is. He's on vacation. Guy gets to have a vacation here and there, right? So it's a long season.
I know, right?
And it's the off season for everybody. Look at the guy break. I don't know what he's up to. He's somewhere on.
We do like 100 shows a year.
Bronzing, he's gonna come back a Greek god, with the bronze skin and everything like that.
You know why?
What's that?
You know why? Because he's on Athletic Greens.
Oh,
I think John's still taking it as he's on break here. Yeah, he'll probably have a few cheat meals, on vacation and all that. But man, Athletic Greens, we're all glowing here from a month or so on this stuff. It is good stuff. High quality.
Yes.
Yeah, it's easy. Every single day you just pour it in your water. You get 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients, probiotics, adaptogens, all to start your day right. Again, it's all in this powder. If you have a nice container, I don't have it in front of me, but you pour it into your bottle. You get all this stuff with the subscription that they have. And, you can try it for a month, do whatever you want. Keep rolling with it if you like it. Just give it a chance. And again, we still have that offer: 1 month of Athletic Greens.
No.
You'll get a free Garden Report T-shirt. Just go over there, Try it out, athleticgreens.com/garden. 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D, 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/garden. Reclaim your health, arm your immune system. That's going to be big with winter coming up. And again, you can get pills, you can get all these different supplements. It's all going to be crazy expensive. Athletic Green is the most straightforward, cost-efficient way to get this done. And again, you get a shirt, you get 5 free travel packs, vitamin D, all the different gear we talked about. Jimmy, you're loving it?
I love it. I take it every day. Just a quick little drink in the morning. Goes down smooth. Start your day off on the right foot. And then, you're kind of bopping around the rest of the day. A little pep in your step. It's hot as hell out there right now. And it kind of gives you that little extra energy, a little extra boost that you need to get through your day. A lot of people are working from home too. They're not getting out. They're not getting the right nutrients, exercise that they need. This kind of gets you in that right direction. So yeah, again, athleticgreens.com/garden, year supply of vitamin D, 5 free travel packages, which are great because you just toss them in the gym bag, bring them with you on the road, wherever you're going, and kind of gives you that, gives you that little boost. And if you do purchase it and you send your receipt to John Zanis on Twitter, you will get a free phenomenal t-shirt, Garden Report t-shirt.
Oh, I think we got it.
Our very first Garden Report
we
t-shirt. These are limited edition. They say phenomenal on there, which is our guy Bobby's catchphrase. And those are free, but you gotta give us proof of purchase. So it is worth it. I don't even have the t-shirt, and I love the product, and I'm gonna keep using it. So all that being said, what I was gonna say quickly before we went into our read was that I think John's main point of contention with the Durant trade was the fact that he is a little bit older for basketball standards. He does have the Achilles history. He's not arguing the fact that he isn't one of the great players in the NBA, but he's wondering how long.
I wish he was here though, Jimmy. I wish he was here because I expected this, and we didn't get to do it this week. I can't wait to do it next week. We're going to have our back and forth. He goes from saying no Durant, he's declining, he's got this injury, and then boom, he's back with the Nets. Nets are better than the Celtics.
Well, listen, in his defense, I'll come to his defense here. I don't think he ever argued the fact that Durant isn't better than Jaylen Brown is today. I think we all can agree that Kevin Durant is. It's the fact that you don't know what you're getting with Kevin Durant on the long term. Is he going to just bitch and moan for a year and then ask for another trade? I mean, there's a history of this now, right? Of not wanting to stay put in a winning situation. I mean, he won a championship with the Warriors and bounced. So it's like winning isn't even what it takes to keep this guy around. It's all dependent on how he's feeling in that situation. So do you give up a guy like Jaylen Brown, who you have under contract right now, for the idea that you'll get the best version of Kevin Durant for the remainder of his contract? That's the risk. Now, on the other side of things, you don't know really what Jaylen Brown's thinking either. Yeah, he's a Boston Celtic today, and there's no reason to believe that he doesn't like it here. There's no reason to believe that he wouldn't resign, but you just don't know. So if you knew one way or the other, that would really help your decision on whether or not you want to make this trade. But strictly based on talent, nobody who watches the NBA would say that Jaylen Brown today is better than Kevin Durant. So yeah, in that sense, you would be better with Kevin Durant for Jaylen Brown straight up, swapping the players. But when you look long term, do you want to give up the chance that you might have Jaylen Brown for the next 7 years, let's say, right? And he's obviously still improving in his career, whereas Kevin Durant has 4 years left in his contract, and that's if he chooses, to be Kevin Durant for the remainder of those 4 years. So that's kind of the back and forth thinking of it, and that's probably the same level of conversation that the Boston Celtics front office had. We know, I think we can all say that we know they had discussions about the possibility of this trade. Bobby, you sent a link to an article today of Brad Stevens, who spoke on WEI, with Fourier Merloni. And Brad Stevens essentially admitted that, they've kept Jaylen Brown in the loop, and they had conversations with him throughout this whole ordeal of the rumors that were going around. Brad Stevens didn't confirm or deny, a specific trade, And I totally understand why it wouldn't make sense for a team to sort of do that. But what Brad Stevens basically acknowledges that, hey, it's my job, in the position that I'm in, to do my due diligence on any player or any, situation or trade possibility that comes about, right? So,
pretty much.
that's why you don't have a fan, running the show, because you want to think as, what's the best decision to make for the team, not, oh, I love this player, I'm not going to pick up the phone for any trade. There's maybe a couple players in the league where you wouldn't pick up the phone on, right? So I think everything Brad Stevens said made sense. But the thing that stood out to me, and Bobby, I don't know if you're pulling up the article and you want to read us the quote, but the thing that stood out to me was basically how he acknowledged or admitted that he's, kept Jaylen Brown sort of in the loop, basically, on as these rumors, if you will, were kind of going around.
Yeah,
this is a consistent. Go ahead, Josue.
No, I was gonna say there was never gonna be a straight up deal with some picks, though, right? I think that's the whole part of this, that Brad he's not gonna say, but it was like, look, it was him doing his due diligence. I don't think he was like, look, would you take Brown straight up with some picks? But to a certain extent, he kind of the report was what, him and White, and obviously it's a match contract, but the big part of it was the Brooklyn Nets going to take a deal like that without a Marcus Smart, without a Rob Williams, and realistically, they were never going to do that. So then, boom, end of conversation. That's why it never progressed from that point, But yeah, I think Brad Stevens did what every other GM in the NBA did, right? It's the same thing that I think Danny Ainge would have done, and we all know, Brad Stevens he's been next to Danny Ainge for years, and it's something that you do. You're supposed to do that. You always want to improve your team and at least check how much that costs. I like how you said that, right? What's the price of to trade for someone like Kevin Durant? What will it cost me? He got his answer, and that was it. The conversation ended.
And so this is a little bit of what we talked about last week, is the timing of all this, the communication internally, how they've handled it, how they've kind of let Jaylen blow in the wind a little bit here out there. I think we can all agree at this point that the Nets have used that Brown offer. And I know the Celtics will go back and forth about what offer means, but effectively Brown's name was mentioned in these talks. Durant requests a trade on June 30th. First 2 weeks, I think most of the league's probably contacting the Nets. That includes the Celtics. I know that Lowe had reported, I believe July 10th was specifically at that time, the last time both teams had talked. And then after that, and Brad got into this in the interview too, once they acquire Malcolm Brogdon, he says they felt good about our team. And at a certain point here, they effectively moved on. I think the timeline of all of this lines up where offers get so low around the league. Pelicans are inquiring without offering Ingram. The Hawks, within the last few days, it was reported that they offered Collins. Just these terrible offers relative to what Durant's value is. I think the Grizzlies even inquired without offering Bane. So every team was in a similar spot, to the point where I think the Celtics probably looked into doing this without Brown, right? I think Brown's name came off the table at a certain point here, and that notion that he was on the table, that you have to bring your second best player to the table, was out there for pretty much the point that Shams reported it on. So at that point, is Stevens gluing in Brown enough that whole time to the point where Brown's saying like, oh, this is all nonsense? Is that what SMS is about? This is SMH. This is all nonsense, because we know still that was Brown's initial reaction to the report. Did the Celtics pacify it enough, especially Stevens in the front office here, where Brown felt good about it? Because if Stevens is coming to you, it's one thing. The front office, again, his name had been in trade rumors in the past.
Read that quote.
You might about the one about
Stevens talking about how he's talked to Brown. Basically.
I think one of the things you have to be able to do.
Okay, this is preface it. This is Brad Stevens.
This is Stevens on the radio talking about how they've handled the communication with Brown. He said, of course, they've reached out to Brown when the name came up. The noise has been around him for a long time and for big names over the years. I think one of the things you have to be able to do, and know better than anybody in this world of professional athletics, you have to be able to ignore the noise and know what's important, but also be able to reach out and have candid and transparent communications with the people that are involved. So yeah, we've had those conversations, made ourselves very open from the get-go, as all of this has been going on for any of our guys. I actually sat down with Jaylen last week, got a chance to see him. He was out in LA training. So they've talked. He understands the situation, as the Globe is saying. But does he?
Yeah.
Does he understand?
Yeah, he's a professional. It's like what Max was saying in the last episode, such a Maxwell podcast.
He was mad at the Garn report.
He's grown up enough. Yeah, he was a little mad. He's not a little kid. He did the crying voice and like, oh, you're gonna hurt Jaylen's feelings, and oh, he's not gonna want to re-sign. You guys are hurting his feelings. Like, yeah, I think he brings up a good point. I mean, I don't think that was.
Wait, is he making fun of?
He's been in the league long enough, you know. What's up?
Right, he's making fun of that notion.
Making fun of people, making fun of the Guard report. It was like you and everyone in the Guard report, you know, saying like, "Oh,
no, he's talking about Bobby. Jaylen. He's not talking about me. He's talking about Bobby. He's definitely not talking about me.
People. He didn't say specifics.
Bobby is the one.
The way he put it, it's all of us. It's everyone, I guess.
Well, listen, we're one. Listen, all for one for all on this show. But I will hang Bobby out to dry at a moment's notice for something like this, because Bobby is the one who's been petrified that Jaylen Brown's gonna, take his ball and go home because the Celtics won't deny the rumors. It's like, dude, they're not gonna go out and do that. Like, they're not gonna do that. They've talked to Jaylen. We said, I'm sure they've had these conversations with Jaylen Brown. He knows what's going on. Jaylen Brown has to be, a professional about it, and I'm sure he is, and understand that it's a business. Trust me, these players all know it's a business. Find me a player that hasn't, been looking out for themselves recently. I can't even think of one. These guys know that it's a business. They know that loyalty goes both ways. I think, especially here in Boston, we see it more than a lot of teams probably do, right? So in both directions. I can't imagine Jaylen Brown hasn't gotten that memo.
Right, but but this isn't anything new. I mean, if you're a Celtics fan, you should be somewhat concerned if Jaylen Brown's if he might sign or might not, because let's face it, he's a guy who believes in himself enough that probably thinks that, hey, I can lead a team, I can lead a franchise. Again, if this team doesn't win a championship, why wouldn't he feel that way? We have to wait and see. This team it got really close, but we'll have to see how they bounce back this season. But obviously, this is something that's down the road. But this is that year where we'll find out exactly where the Celtics stand in that regard.
There's a couple layers to it, though, right? So the front office is communicating, as they say here. The players, this was my biggest problem. This is why I went on the thing that I guess Max didn't like. Where's Tatum? Because, all right, Grant's one thing, right? So Grant actually speaks at that camp. We kicked it around, all the comments he made. He was kind of waffling a little bit, saying, oh, Al Jefferson got traded for Garnett and disrespect and this and that. I don't think it was the best comment in the world, but again, I think it was a tough question to answer. So credit to Grant for actually addressing it. I haven't loved Tatum's defiance, especially at the New York premiere, say they hadn't heard about it, not sure if it's true or not. At his camp, really not even address it. We had the guy telling us before, no KD questions. And then, I don't know if you guys saw his interview with Taylor.
Bobby let out the F word right when that happened.
I saw bits and pieces of it, but I didn't watch the whole thing, Bobby. What was it about that part that you're talking about?
One of the questions that came up was the photo that we talked about. Again, I don't think it was the best look in the world. At the height of the Brown rumors, to be pictured with Durant, working out, chumming it up out in Los Angeles. And Tatum in this interview, pretty defiant against the criticism that's been levied against him for the picture.
Who criticized him besides us?
I don't know.
Go on though.
He goes, they exaggerate everything I do. I've known since I was in high school. We were on the USA team together. We spent 5 weeks together last year from Vegas to Tokyo. Won a gold medal. We have a bond. That's my brother. And it's like, I'm not too proud to say KD's one of the best players ever. So it's like, one of the best players wants to work out with you and I can learn some things from him. Why would I say no? If you worry too much about what other people think, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And it's crazy that I can't work out with somebody. That's all that was. We were working out together trying to get better.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, going back to the show that we had, I know, Josue, you weren't able to be on it. And I'd love to get your take on it. Actually, why don't you go first before I rehash everything I said?
What's that? Just about
the picture, the picture. What's your take on?
Yeah, I mean, look,
Tatum
Kevin
and Durant
Durant
working out together in the middle of this whole thing, and
he's
the
one of the greatest players. He's arguably the best scorer of all time. Of course, if that should be an agenda for someone like Jason Tatum coming out of a finals appearance. So yeah, I didn't have an issue with it. And again, I think behind closed doors, guys are having conversations that we don't know about. We don't know Tatum and Brown are constantly talking to each other. Maybe not, but I don't think Brown should take that as a slight or should take that as oh man, are these guys, is this thing going to happen now because they're working out? No, I think Jaylen's mature enough to not think that. If anything, he's thinking maybe, shit, I would have liked an invite, but maybe he's not taking it personal, but I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's like, all right, well, I can call up Tracy again, but it's all good. You guys didn't hit me up. It's cool. He has other people he's working out with too. It's great. They're both trying to improve off of what happened. They're both having a fun off season. I think
I understand that.
I think Tatum's probably having the most fun out of anyone, but I don't have a problem with Tatum. I don't.
It's the timing. It's the photo, right? I couldn't believe they put that photo out there. And again, it was our guy, Brett Hampton. He's been doing a lot of the documentary work with Tatum this summer.
What up,
doing
Brett?
a great job. But again, a guy working for the Celtics, I'm sure that's something you put out there. The Celtics have some input on, what we're doing to kind of brand ourselves and put
how funny would it be
Maybe
if
not.
Brett never got clearance on that? He just put it out there and Tatum's pissed. That'd be funny.
No, Tatum loves it. Tatum doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. And again, to Tatum's point, and he's talked about this a lot over the years, he's been criticized for being too quiet, not being aggressive enough, not being the kind of outspoken guy, and all these different criticisms of his leadership. And he says, I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to take input from anybody else on leadership, which fair enough. If you want our input, I don't think this is great leadership during the height of this. And that's the position he's in, right? You have to kind of understand what the response is going to be to this, what the response of your teammate might be, even if Brown doesn't say anything about it. Aren't you looking at this if you're Brown saying, amid all these rumors and Brad talking to you every day saying, we're not looking to move you. And all of a sudden you see on Instagram, Tatum and Durant working out. And again, if this is Tatum's perspective on it, right, that nothing's wrong with this, I'm just working out with a guy, he probably didn't text Brown and say, heads up, here comes a photo. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it.
Listen,
I don't think he did that, but I'm sure, I don't know. I don't think you could take that personal. If anything, that's like
Joey, you're in trade rumors. Someone had a great analogy for this.
You make it sound like the caption was like, look out, everyone. Yo, here we're coming. Oh, some sort of cryptic message. I don't think it was something.
Here you go.
The timing of it wasn't great.
Here we go.
Okay, with you.
All right, yeah. It's the optics, and nobody in their right mind would say Jason Tatum shouldn't be working out with Kevin Durant in any other situation, time of year, any point in the world. It's just the timing of it all was tough. Josue, think of it like this. Let's say there's a rumor that Brian Robb's going to replace you on the Garden Report, and then a week later, I'm out partying. I'm at the bars. Me and B-Rob, we're chilling, we're drinking,
B-Rob.
we're having.
Man,
I know dude. we all love B-Rob. I'm sure that a lot of people love a lot of players love Kevin Durant. Why wouldn't I hang out with B-Rob? B-Rob's my boy. You would be kind of like, okay.
No,
okay,
we go to Joe Sway first, and
okay,
we say,
yeah, that would be.
Don't worry. Yeah. Don't worry. We have nothing to do with B-Rob. He is not joining the Garden Report. You are safe.
Naturally, that would come up in convo. I'll be like, yo, how about these rumors? Man, these rumors are crazy. But that's our equivalent of it. So yeah, of course, I want Jason Tatum to get better. I want him to learn everything he can learn from Kevin Durant. And I know that these guys talk and hang out all the time. I mean, every time we see Jason Tatum, he's with whether it's Curry, Draymond, Durant, LeBron, right? I mean, all these guys. I just jokingly confirmed Tatum to the Lakers after I saw him, playing with LeBron over the weekend. I mean, we know, I can go on about that too. But the point is, I think the only criticism, if you want to even call it that, if you're a Celtics fan, is that you would want maybe a little bit more outward support. You want to hear a little bit more support for each other, in the public eye. Maybe these guys are totally cool behind the scenes and they know everything that's going on. That could totally be true. But from the outside looking in, I know, but from the outside looking in, It's just the
The
optics
relationship
of it.
is weird.
This is
I know,
this is typically a non-story, and people get mad. Oh, this guy's working out with that guy. Why aren't they working out together? It's the timing, right? There's no way.
If the
Tatum
relationship
didn't
wasn't as
understand.
weird, though, Bobby, hold on real quick. If the relationship wasn't as weird, it wouldn't be an issue. But because I think I see what you guys are saying. But again, if there were, remember the one was posting things with AD, like, oh, I want everyone keep that same energy, you know, when the playoffs and all that stuff. Like, they don't post stuff like that. They don't even post workout pictures. You know, they don't work out together.
Think of what he
Like,
said
outside
about
of the season. Like,
think about what he said about Durant here that I just read, Josue. Have you ever heard Tatum talk about Brown like that? Like, this is one of the best players in the league.
You don't want to go down this path.
No, again, I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to be a problem. I guess it's a good pivot. So training camp comes up in a month from
Real
now.
quick though. Real quick. How about
I can't wait. I can't wait to see this. Can't wait.
How about Tatum in the Pro-Am with LeBron? I'm telling you, I'm more concerned about
He looked
I'm more
amazing.
concerned about the Tatum Lakers connection than I am about Durant.
Oh yeah,
and
they're going to be
Brown.
looking great in a couple of years.
Not yet.
aren't
Not yet.
they?
I'm more concerned about
It's been a
that.
couple
Hey,
of
that's
years,
that's
Jay.
not
Don't
a
have to worry
concern for
about that
today.
yet.
We'll be
I'll
talking
tell you,
about that
Jimmy.
down the road.
Right.
But
Right.
I'll tell you, Jimmy, any day now they're going to trade those 2 first-round picks in 27, 29 and mortgage their future for this last year extension they have.
All right,
It's
then we
it's
don't
going to
have
be a
to worry about it.
disaster out there.
Yeah. Anyways.
How's this going to – so they're going to run this back. This was always the advantage that the Celtics had, right? They have this amazing team, best starting lineup in the NBA from last year. They added depth to it. It looks amazing. And you guys see the video of Luke Cornett throwing it down reverse off the dribble?
I actually missed that, Bobby. I know it's
No,
crazy.
I didn't see that.
Believe
You
it.
see
I was sending that around. I'll
You didn't
retweet
send
it.
it to
But
us.
I guess I
retweet
missed the
that.
Garden Report group chat.
I
But
thought you were
yeah,
joking.
everybody's – no, he was crossover, reverse dunk off the dribble. Luke
No,
Cornett. So
I
he's
saw
looking great.
Wow.
I saw Bobby
And
Manning hitting
actually-
that 3-pointer though.
I see you, Luke.
At camp. That was
And
that
actually,
was
guess who liked that
That was clutch.
tweet of Cornette throwing it down? Brad Stevens, I believe, is under his likes. So Stevens very excited about Cornette, as am I. And, you know, everybody's excited about Brogdon, Gallinari, the starting lineup coming back. This team's going to be really good. Again, I can't fathom what John said about the Nets being better than this team, because this team looks amazing. But is there going to be any hangover of this Brown trade? You know, any bad feelings? Is this going to be a topic into camp? Is Brown going to say something on day one that, you know, gets us going? I don't know. It's going to be interesting, just the after effects to this. Or is, as Grant said, Brown going to use this as motivation to have a huge year?
I think he'll probably get a question about it on media day. It'll come up in some way, but that'll be the end of it. I think, you know, I think the timing of this whole thing it's good, you know, for the Celtics to just sort of focus and just, or at least the Celtics fans that were worried or not worried or wherever you stand in the debate. But I think, again, with training camp and being around the guys again and seeing them, you know, just turn the page here after, again, 2 wins away from the NBA final, we know how close they were, right? So I think that motivation enough to quiet the crowd in itself, I think is gonna come back in a strong way. You know, so I think I'm not concerned for this team and then thinking, oh man, could this thing have happened, or were you really going to be traded? I think that'll all be forgotten by the time they go to training camp.
Yeah, I'm with Josue. I mean, listen, the questions are going to come up. There's going to be a million, people trying to ask questions, and it'll come up, and they'll answer it, and they'll move on. It's not going to be any drama, it's really not anything that anyone on the Celtics has to be upset about. Jaylen Brown.
You don't think he'll say SMH?
No, I don't think he'll say SMH. Listen, if it's something that continues to come up, like there's all these reports and rumors that continue to surface about the Celtics are in ongoing negotiations, blah, 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 then yeah, that'll be a distraction. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're content with who they have going into the year, injuries aside and everything like that. I don't think, once they get into camp, I think this is going to be their team and they're going to move forward with who they have. And it's just, my only concern is, my bigger concern would be finals hangover. Has nothing to do with the Durant Brown stuff. It's just, you kind of caught lightning in a bottle. I mean, we saw 2 completely different teams last season. It's easy to forget the team we saw that all the way into December and just want to block that out and not ever talk about it. But who's to say that, we don't see some of those signs again, right? Coming out of the gates, or, you know, they're not buying in as much as they were on the defensive end. And, you know, like there's a million things, you know, like, and I understand that they did get deeper, you know, Brogdon, Gallinari, they filled two big needs there. And I do think that they are a better team this year on paper than they were last season. I 100% believe that. But, man, are they going to be as good as they were at points for a long enough point in the season coming up? I don't know. I mean, like they were unbelievably good for long stretches last season. Now, I understand they're going to come back down to earth a little bit. The key will be not being as bad as you were to start the season, right? Sort of play a little bit more.
They have to try hard.
Then,
yeah, Ime's right. talked about that, so they can rest guys, so they can set their rotations,
right?
And just not have that urgency of last year, right? Because January they had to win 28 out of 35 to get up to the top of the East, and that was still only good enough for the 2 seed. That ridiculous run that they went on there, and they were 11 seed when that started, so they were in a massive hole. You do hope that they're not just ahead of themselves and thinking that it's going to be automatic this year, that they're just going to appear back.
There's no reason
they
should
finals.
be. I mean, you know, we just wait. You go. I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, we mentioned this in our group chat. Like, are there the other really good teams in the league? Are they scared of the Celtics? I don't. You know, I know that was one of John's takes, and I tend to agree. They're not this team that like screams like dominant player in the East status. Yeah, we know that they're one of the more talented teams. We know that they're going to be a finals contender. I know right now they're a favorite, but are teams scared of them? Like, are they scared to play against them? I don't think so. I think the Bucks have every reason to believe they're the best team. I think the Heat are, you know, a veteran team. If they can be healthy, they have every reason to think so. You know, I think we already talked about the Nets. If they can play basketball, they're up there. The Sixers, you know, you've got arguably the best player in the NBA and Joel Embiid on that team. And if Harden returns to some level of form, I mean, really, that's an unbelievable 1-2 combination that some would say is maybe the best, right? So there's a lot of teams in the East that can make the claim that they're the team to beat. So the Celtics have no reason to just like think that they're just going to show up and win games. We know that they have to play extremely hard to win games, to be honest. They have to be the best defensive team in the NBA to win games, because at many points last season, their offense was very far from where it needed to be. You know, the stagnant part of the season, or the stagnant offense that they showed.
Yeah, and their stars are especially Smart, especially Tatum. I know everyone's excited about Brogdon. He's going to help make things easier for those guys, which I think is the real impact of that. I think some people are looking at Brogdon coming in thinking he's going to solve problems, which isn't necessarily his role. I think Smart's going to have the ball a ton again. He's going to be the point guard on this team, and Tatum is going to be the primary ball handler more often than not. So those are the two guys that we're turning over left and right in the playoffs, and those are the two guys that are going to have to get to a new level on that end. Because, yeah, I think that did undermine a lot of the stuff that the Celtics were doing in the playoffs, defensively and even shot-making wise, when they were just ridiculous from outside the arc for much of that run.
Yeah.
The turnovers killed them. That's the reason they didn't win the championship. It's all turnovers.
Turnovers were horrific.
But I think Malcolm helps that, right?
A little bit.
He helps Tatum and Brown
get
to the spots better. I think he's a threat. His outside shot's a threat also. I mean, he's not like I think his pull-up game is put it that way. I think the way he pulled the pull-up game and defenses cannot ignore that. I think all that is relative in helping Tatum and Brown get easier looks, open looks.
They have a lot of shooting this year.
Right, and he's reinforcement on the defensive end. Obviously, I just think that's such a huge pickup for this team. And when you think about what they were missing, and when you think about a team that needed that secondary production, offensively, he answers that question. So I think the Celtics are in great shape because of that. But yeah, Jimmy, I'm with you. I don't think teams are necessarily afraid of the Celtics, but they have to get out to a great start in order to strike fear of these teams. I think if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, you're like, man, if Middleton was in there, we win. If you're the Miami Heat, let's run back those last 2 minutes, force overtime.
Yeah.
Things could have been different. So, yeah, I think if you're those teams, you're wondering if, okay, let's see if this Celtics team can do it all season long. They got a couple of I want to say a couple of lucky things that happened to them, but obviously they strengthen up defensively. But how long can they do that in the course of an 82-game season, or how tough is that defense going to be when they run it back and teams are healthier, especially the Bucks?
Well, you mentioned fear, Jimmy. They don't have to make teams fear them. I don't think many teams are going to make other teams fear them. Even the Bucks. Like I get worried when I see the Bucks, but I don't think the Celtics go in the Bucks games and are like, we're playing Giannis.
I'm not saying they do, but it goes both ways.
So I don't think that's like they were killing teams last year, and I still think that's possible if they're healthy and connected, especially with the starting lineup. That defense is going to be great again here, and we got to keep an eye on a couple of different things here, like Rob's health, how Horford looks another year older, Smart certainly.
That center position's something to keep an eye on for sure.
And Smart was on his game last year from January on, right? All the frustrating parts of his game disappeared. He was focusing on playmaking. That sort of reversed itself a little bit in the playoffs there. So he's still going to be so key at the point of attack. And the only chemistry thing after Brown that could be an issue here, right, is if Smart's really struggling, Brogdon's killing it on the bench. We've talked about the fans disrespecting Brown, which I think is overblown, but Celtics fans, I know them. If Smart's struggling and Brogdon's killing it, they're going to be yelling for that change, even though Smart's given them so much over all these years. People are really excited about Brogdon, and that's the only chemistry thing. And I don't think there's many holes in this team roster-wise, basketball-wise, but chemistry-wise, that's the only thing that you still have to worry about. And honestly, they handled that pretty well, right? They squashed that whole Brogdon-Smart thing almost right away after they acquired him.
Yeah. And again, I'm not concerned about that either, at least not right now. I think there's going to be a lot of points where you're going to see Smart and Brogdon in the game at the same time. You're going to see Brogdon, Smart, Brown, Tatum, throw Rob in there, throw Horford in there, whatever. It's not going to be always just one or the other. It's not a competition between the two. And I think Smart has definitely earned the right. He's the starter, and it's going to take more than just a couple of bad games shooting for him to be replaced. I don't care what the fans say. I think a lot of people have come around on Marcus Smart because they understand what he does add to the team. And in my opinion, he is the leader of the team. He's the captain, even though it's not official and all that stuff. I would go out and name him captain tomorrow if it was up to me. Now, I don't think that would go to his head. I don't think that
they went through that last year, Jimmy.
Well, listen. Yeah, but
ain't nobody gonna bring up captains this year. No questions about captains.
I know.
That might actually be my first question, Josue. Ime, you thinking about captains?
And the whole group's gonna start
Bobby,
laughing.
that's probably a legitimate question, by the way. Someone's gonna ask it. I would certainly ask.
I mean, no, it's not a bad question, but it's funny because people are gonna crack up. Put it that way, because it was such a big deal last year, especially around this time, or at least
1,000%.
It's funny what we were talking about last year.
That's a legitimate question, and I would be interested in the answer. And I have no idea what the answer would be. I would rather have Marcus Smart named captain than do co-captains of Tatum and Brown, because if you have two captains, you have no captains, right? Yeah. So, anyways, that's just a whole besides the point thing. But point being, I'm not concerned about Marcus Smart, again, taking this ball and going home just because Malcolm Brogdon is, getting some playing time. Marcus Smart wants to win more than anybody. So if Malcolm Brogdon can help them get to where he wants to be, who's going to complain about that, right? So Malcolm Brogdon adds a lot to the team. He's going to be their best free throw shooter too. So he's going to find his way in these games late. So yeah, maybe there's a situation where Brogdon does play in certain situations over Smart, because you might need that offense over the defense, right?
Well, they have to be, they have to be flexible, right?
Right.
Yeah, they got to be flexible, because, game one of the finals, Smart was on the bench when Pritchard was killing it, and that was a sustainable way to win that game. And you almost wondered what impact that had on the series the rest of the way, that benching late in that game, because, you should be able to roll with a lineup late in the game that's hot. A guy should be able to sit if it's not working for him that night. That's the kind of Celtics team this is going to be this year, you would think, for the most part along the edges, especially at center. It's gonna, Horford and Rob did a great job with that last year. You would have thought Rob would have been closing most games, but there were a lot of nights, especially in the playoffs, where Horford was that closer, because Horford was just playing so great. So guys have to be flexible with that. And we forget White. White could have a bounce back year this year, full training camp, full off season with the team. It just seemed like such a rushed, hurried entrance for him last year that had some kind of impact on how he fit in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We know,
because
we know he's better than
that guy who's just in the corner. If he's the guy just in the corner, then that's not going to be. He was supposed to be more valuable than that. I think he will be too. He's just going to have to find his find his spot, find his role.
It's going to be awesome. I can't fathom that the Nets are better than the Celtics next year. I really can't. But we'll get into that next week. I can't wait to hash that out with John. Nice to check in with everybody here. I'm sure there'll be news. There's been news every week at this point, and if there is, we're always willing to jump on here. And I did a couple of newsers the last couple of days here on this, and the Tatum interview with Taylor Rooks as well that you can go find at Celtics All Access, of course. If you support the Garden Report, go ahead and support our sponsors, Athletic Greens, athleticgreens.com/garden. Go try it out.
Times, Bobby. Let's get one more. Let's give him a little bit more love here.
You're going to get vitamins, nutrients, probiotics, a little bit of everything you need for your health with Athletic Greens.
It removes that midday fatigue. That's what it does.
I like that. I like the way you put that.
Athleticgreens.com/garden.
You're going to get a year's supply of vitamin D, or is it vitamin?
Vitamin D.
Yep. Yeah, vitamin D. Of course, vitamin D. Everyone listen. Vitamin D is important. It's one of the most important vitamins out there. So, in a year's supply of vitamin D, you're going to get 5 travel packs. You can toss it to you, Bobby. You're going to get 5 travel packs. So
all right, man.
You will be able to take Athletic Greens AG1 on the road with you, toss it into a bag, and you should be good to go from there. So we appreciate them. Shout out to everybody who joined us today. Joe Sway, what do you got going on? What do you got going on? On the podcast realm right now?
Oh man, actually, we're talking to Max and I are talking to Muggsy Bogues. We're trying to get him on soon, whether this week or next week. We got that coming up, and he's talking about his book, his story, incredible stuff, and Max from North Carolina, so they're gonna be talking about Charlotte, I'm sure. But yeah, that'll be fun. And we also have a mailbag episode we're gonna finally get to. All this Durant stuff is finally done, so we can answer your questions. And guys, if you have any more,
how do they ask you questions?
You can hit up Max on Twitter, shout him out. A lot of people have been hitting him up with messages. He's got his DMs are open. You can send me messages as well. You can tweet us. Hit us up, and we'll answer those questions. Either this week or next week, one of those. Probably this week. Okay. And then we'll probably do we'll do the Muggsy Bogues interview soon.
Sounds good. I love Muggsy Bogues. Muggsy Bogues was like that guy that I kind of had to look up to, as a kid, because he was playing basketball at like 5'4".
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, it's like I'm taller than that guy. Look at him. He's going, and I'm only 12. Yeah, it's great.
Bobby, are you good? Should I bring you back on, or are you not good, dude?
Is he there? You see him?
Can you hear us? All right, we can't hear you, Bobby. So give the fans a little peace sign. For those watching, we lost Bobby's audio, but we're gonna call it a day, anyways. Here, so for Bobby Manning, who can no longer speak, Joe Sway, I am Jimmy Toscano. John Zanis will probably be back from his vacation next week. We'll see.
Next time.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
I want to talk to John about this whole thing.
That coward John. Of course he would disappear after the Durant news surfaces. But no, appreciate everybody coming out. And
he'll weigh in. It'll be fun.
Oh, he's never one to hide from sharing his opinions. That's for sure. So we will get those next week. Everybody have a good week. Peace.